Good morning, everyone. It is March 2nd. Happy Dr. Seuss Day and Read Across America Day, in case you didn't know that. But you are here for a Getting Started with Google Classroom session. And for those of you that don't know me, Kristen can almost do this by heart now because she knows it very well. It's Bond, Virginia Bond. Bond like James, Virginia like the state. I always say that, and it sounds so silly, but if you knew the number of people in the United States that do not know how to spell the word Virginia, when it's a state, it's almost shocking. There's always an I missing in my name, always. People are like, you didn't get your email. I'm like, it's because you can't spell Virginia. There's 3 I's in it. Okay, so we are here for Google Classroom. I'm going to just do a quick little, I'm going to do a data privacy disclaimer. I don't do it with every Google topic, but today I may show you a couple of things that are a little different, some other things. So just understand that if I show you anything beyond Google Classroom, like an extension or something you can use, that you really need to follow your data privacy and security based within your own classroom. So if I decide to show you tab resize, and I'm sure I'm gonna, just understand that you really need to check with your DPO, so whoever your data privacy officer is, and it's usually an administrator or someone along those lines. It could be a tech director. It's the person who's really in charge of what software your district uses in and out of the building. And everybody has a little different rule for that. So in case you see something super wonderful, know that you got to ask. Okay, so today we're going to talk about creating a new Google Classroom, understanding that layout, getting in, understanding the tabs, being able to add pieces to Classroom, able to change the settings, and just had a brain stem thought process here, sorry, and understand how to invite guardians. I did a quick scan this morning because so I just grabbed my learning book right here. I did a quick scan this morning through Classroom. It's Tuesday, and we know that Tuesday changes come to Google, right? It's Tuesday, it's Google Day. So 2 heads ups for you. Number 1, there are changes coming to Google Classroom. So that's why I did a quick scan in here to see if they had come in today. Don't see them yet. So here's another heads up for you. Next Tuesday is a big day in the world of Google. You will see lots of Google posts, Google Twitter posts. Probably there will be something out besides that because next Tuesday is the 10th birthday of the Chromebook. 3.9 is, it came out in 2011. And they have a few big things planned. One of them, they do have some classroom rollouts coming. They have some Chromebooks rollout coming. But one of the big things that will be happening probably within the next week is that there will be a Chrome browser update. It will go from 88 to 89. Sorry, I just had a lint on my lip. So be on the lookout for that. This is bonus for you today. It has nothing to do with Classroom, but it can be very valuable. How do you know what browser you're in? You can come up to the 3 dots, the snowman or the traffic light. I'm going to call it a snowman today because it's like freezing cold up here in the North Country. And I'm going to click on settings. And if you come to About Chrome, all the way down on the left-hand side, and you go to About Chrome, it will tell you what version of Chrome you are in. If you need to update, they'll have an update button here for you. So it's really an easy fix. You don't have to call a tech. If you have a Chromebook, you just restart your Chromebook and it will automatically restart your device and it'll load the newest, latest, and greatest update. All right, so that's my basic information for you today. So creating a classroom. So let's just stop for a second and talk our way through all the pieces we've worked on. We've done 6 different pieces within Google so far. We've done Google Drive, that's for storage. We've done Google Mail, that's to, mail things. Boy, that's to send things to people back and forth, right? A simple one. We've done Google Docs, that's for word processing, anything to do with text. We've done Google Forms, that's to collect data, to do surveys, to do quizzes. We've done Google Slides, that is for visual representations. Holy Toledo, Virginia. Oh, and we did the Chrome browser. That was way back at the beginning. We did the Chrome browser, like pins and how the browser works and all of those special things. Google Classroom is the component that takes docs and slides and sheets and forms and ties them all together in a neat little piece and allows us to create an environment for students and or teachers to push content to them, right? So a lot of places will call this an LMS. So we're nerds. Some of us are more nerdier than others, and nerds super like acronyms. They're just into them. They got so many, like I would consider myself to be kind of a nerd. Not at the level of most people, but LMS stands for Learning Management System, okay? A learning management system. For a long time, Google Classroom was not considered a learning management system because it didn't have an integrated gradebook. That's what makes an LMS an LMS. So like Blackboard or Moodle or Schoology or Canvas or Edmodo, those are all LMSs because they had an embedded gradebook. Google now has that and has had it for about the last 2 years. So it is now can be called an LMS. So like all the other Google products, we go to classroom.google.com. And you will see in here, I have Google Classrooms ready to go. You can see that I have some already. I have 7 of them. A couple little things. If you've done this before, you have the ability to move these bad boys around, which is always kind of awesome, right? So you're almost always in charge of what you need. But there's a difference between my Google Classrooms. You can see this one has a circle and these do not. I am the teacher in these classrooms. I am a student in this classroom. So anytime you see a circle in a Google Classroom, it means you're a member of the classroom as a student. So let's say I want to create a new classroom. And to do this, I'm going to look for my Google Classroom and I'm going to look for the plus sign. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click the plus sign. You only have 2 options. I can either join a class or I can create a class. And Mary Beth, I think we ran into this before last year with you in the spring. Like if you joined a class too early and you hadn't created a class, you immediately be taken out of the teacher's staff organizational unit and you get put into a student one. And all of your abilities can be changed just by that one single move. So it's always important if it's your first time to use a Google Classroom, like I say this with new teachers, the first thing you want to do is create one, not join one. Super important. So you always want to create and then join. The joining part has gotten easy. So let's just say I'm going to create a new one right here. It says, do you want it? So I'm in my personal account. So this is why it's giving me an error message, right? It's not an error message, it's a pop-up. And it says, hey, are you going to make this for kids at school? And it doesn't want us to do that. It doesn't want us to be able to use a personal account to have students come into it. It wants us to use our school account for our kids. That makes a lot of sense, right? Well, let's say I'm going to do a training with this one, and I am. So I'm going to call it Google Classroom Training. And I'm going to call it Demo Class. I can name the subject. I can call it Tech. I'm going to call it FA 148 because that's my room number. And I'm just going to tell it to create. And then we're going to be patient. I mean, we don't have to be like super patient. It should like populate itself within a minute. Oh, look at that. Voila. We have one ready to go, right? So there, that's how to make a new one. It's that simple. Now, it's just a shell at this point. There's nothing else in it, right? So I'm going to continue to go. So the next one is really understanding the layout of classroom. I'm actually going to take you into a classroom, and this is going to be where I split my screen because I'm going to use a extension called tab resize to split between my two screens. And I don't know what I just did, but I did just do something. No, I just like got rid of my hair. I'm like, what just happened? I didn't. Thank you. It's one of those days. It's like a Tuesday. It's a Monday on a Tuesday. We're going to use this screen, but I want to split it so I can show you across a full screen. So tab resize is an extension that allows me with the push of a Donna. I just saw that look. She's like, allows me with the push of a button to just split my screen in half, and I can just put them back together. If you're a super geek like I am, I have a massive monitor in front of me. It's probably 19 inches across. It's like a little mini TV, what we would have called a big TV monitor in the past. Not now, right? But I can take that and I actually can do by a 4x4 split. So I can actually have 4 things going at one time, which I stinking love when I'm on one screen. There's a lot of times I'm only on one screen. So I love this 2-way split. So I'm going to do a 2-way split. Simple, right? Because what I want to see is this, and I'm going to use it against this. So you'll notice that in the document that I shared with you, I'm going to make it just a little larger. This is one of those weird times when I make it smaller, but it actually gets bigger. So the layout of this, you have 2 sets of settings. You have a big setting and a little setting. And what I did when I made this is I took a screenshot of this and then I circled or boxed or arrowed in the appropriate color, okay? So a lot of times if you have a parent or a student that struggles with Google Classroom, this is a great piece to take a picture of or download this slide as an image and send to them because it really helps them navigate the space they're in. Now this is teacher. They will not have, well, they will have some of these settings, not all of them. So you have big settings, they sit here, and in your big settings, you will see all of your Google Classrooms. So I have lots of them, including all of the ones that I ever have archived. And down at the bottom, you see settings. Well, why is this important? Because this is the way that I can edit the kind of email notifications that I get coming from this. So if you're like me and I have NARC Google Classrooms, personal account Google Classrooms, Rushton Google Classrooms, Salmon River Google Classrooms, I'm probably in 25 classes at Salmon River. I don't want any of the email notifications, right? I just am in there to kind of like, there was an issue, they put me in the classroom so I could look at it, and then they just leave me in there. So I go in and I turn off all my email notifications. And you can do that. Now, classroom teachers, you don't want to do that, right? You need to get some of them, but you're able to pick and choose which ones you want. But if you're a co-teacher in a classroom, as in you're a special educator who's in with the general educator, it's really great to be able to turn off some of the posts because you don't need probably to know when late submissions or resubmissions or invitations, you probably don't need all those. So you can kind of read your way through these and you can mention the ones that you need. So if I post something, I want to get an email on it. And if I have a comment that mentions me, because I teach my students how to do that, I want an email on that. Do I need private comments on work? No, because if I've pushed work to my students, I'm checking it regularly. I'm in it. It's like my grade book. I'm opening that bad boy up all the time and I'm looking at it. So I don't necessarily need all of these reminders, these notifications to come to me. So you also have 2 levels. You have classes you're enrolled in and you have classes you teach. So you can pick or choose which one you want. They affect all of your Google Classrooms. You don't get to say, oh, I only want it for this one, but not that one. These are the big settings. They affect every Google Classroom you touch. So now I'm going to go, excuse me, back into this classroom that I was in. And we're going to talk about the little settings, which are across the top. The wheel. So we're going to hit this more later on, but this is where your class details are, like the name of your course, your description. Huge thing when we talk about naming any kind of course, make sure you name it with a name that makes sense. Like your name should be in it. So Mary Beth, I'm going to use you as an example. You're teaching a class, you're at CRB, your administrator may also have access to that. If you just put in math, right? And they have like 30 other teachers who put in math, they're going to hate all of you because then they got to scan through and find who they are. So it's always good practice to have your last name in there. It's great for kids too. Just say Matthews. You notice I used a colon. I have the group it is. I have the year it is. If I'm teaching like a social studies class, it might say Bond Global period 2. It's so clear, and that's going to come up a little bit later because one of the big things is that we do not delete Google Classrooms. We archive them. We put them in the filing cabinet around the corner. So the benefit of that is that we have the ability to reuse posts that are in those Google Classrooms. And the better they're labeled, the better we can pull out of the right one. So it's nice to have the school year on it as well, because right now, most of us have a 1920 and a 2021 school year. So you might be wanting to pull stuff out of the 1920 that you did last year because, shocker, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of going remote last year. So we can maybe use some of those same posts. I mean, we can pull the content in and then, because we all know better than we did last year about like, okay, that was not good directions. I can type up better directions, but we have the ability to reuse some of that information again. I'm going to talk about that again. So that's naming is so important. Of course, that's like a tech teacher's mantra in general. Naming is important all the time because if you don't name it correctly, you can't find it. Says Virginia, who looked for an iReady file last night for 3 hours and has no idea where it is because I can't remember where I put it, right? I can't even remember what kind of document it was. I've also moved 3 times and I'm on my 3rd laptop in a month. So that may be part of the problem. So understanding all of that. Okay, we're going to come back and do the other general things that are in here as well. So then we have the title across the top, and that was in the settings. You do that when you come in. You have your 4 tabs, this purple box, stream, classwork, people, and grades. We'll talk about that in a minute. We have our header, which is up here. So this is a customized header. You don't have to have a customized header. If I was in this original one, right, it defaults you to a header, just puts one in there for you. I can always come up here, it says select a theme. I can also upload a photo. So if you have a customized header, I've uploaded the header. There is, excuse me, there is a link somewhere in this presentation on a Google slide presentation for the header. And then you can upload a photo as well. The next one, the announcements come down in here. And upcoming is right here in this box. Now, I didn't go into like selecting a theme because most of you took my Google Forms training and it's the same exact thing. You click on this, I'll show you what I mean though. You come in here, you have a bunch of options. You just pick one, put it in there and boom, it's done. Like it's done. They make it easy. Use colors. Use colors the same way you used it before. Like in Forms, you want to use colors here as well because that's going to make it easier to keep it simple. Okay, next one down. So let's talk about header specifics. In your header, is your title is the section your class code sits in here. That's going to be important later on. If you're using Google Meet and you have turned that on, it also sits in here. So you'll notice I have an eyeball with a line through that. That means it's Google Meet is not visible to the students, okay? Anytime you see an icon with a line through it, it's a no, okay? And think of like, it's the equivalent of like a stop sign with a line. I don't even know. What do we use that has a line through it like that, right? We all know what it means, but sometimes it like befuddles us a little bit, right? So when it has a line through, it's a no. So right now I'm using Google Meet in this classroom, but I have the link turned off, okay? Lots of changes are gonna come to Google Meet in the next few weeks with the new Google updates. So the 4 tabs of the classroom, we're gonna start in the first one is the stream. The stream, just like it sounds like. Most recent is on the top, okay? Most recent on the top, and it filters down. Everything pushes down. The more I put in my stream, the harder it is to find things. Now, you will notice that my stream is very neat. The only thing you see in here are circles. I'm going to make it messy. I'm going to make a dirty, messy one just because sometimes this is what I see all the time when I come in. All right, so I'm going to go back out to my stream. And when I'm in this stream, you'll notice I now have circles, which are my avatar. And then I have all of these little like green little boxes, right? Those are assignments. So if I allow my classwork assignments to come to the stream, it muddies the water, for lack of a better word, right? And so I'm a North Country girl. I love my Adirondacks, right? We like our streams clean. We keep our water pure. We keep all the junk out of it. So do not put, this is Virginia's personal preference, but it really is good practice. Keep your classwork where your classwork goes. Keep your stream where your announcements go. I like to think of the stream as you standing at the door and welcoming your students into the classroom. Hey guys, how you doing today? Here's what we're going to do. Or here's the link to our session today. Here's what could be really appropriate for you. Oh, I found this great video. Let's do this. It's the place where conversation occurs, okay? Because if you don't keep it clean, it is super easy to lose things in that area. And I'm going to come back into this, so no worries. So now you'll notice that my stream is nice and clean. And it's also, I just gave Kristen the tour of my new office here. If you're a teacher who was like very, for lack of a better word, anal like me about where stuff went, and I am, right? Anal about where stuff went. Everything has a place. So if you already have a classwork place in place, use it, right? Don't have your stuff in 2 places because it's confusing to your students. All right, so a classwork tab. A classwork tab is where your actual work goes that you create for your students. When I am in full screen, you will notice I have topics down the side, and I have multiple kinds of options to create an assignment. I can create a straight up assignment. You'll notice that I have a Kami assignment here. That's because I have Kami installed on my device. That is an add-on for Google Classroom. That is something that is coming to Google Classroom. That's like the big announcement. That's why I came in to check today to see if they were in here yet. You're going to be able to do Pear Deck in here. There was like 3 more, and I can't remember what they are, that are out right now. They're not all out, obviously, but those are new things. You can push out a quiz assignment. You can push out a question. You can add materials. Well, what would a material be? A material is something that you would have your students, I think I have some in here. Maybe I do not. Oh yeah, I do right there. So when I come into materials, what are ideas of materials? Materials are like a Google Doc that are like a Google Classroom statement. So if you've ever taken a course with me before, you know that in earlier last year, some of my CRB friends, some of my Capital Region BOCES friends had an issue with getting Google Classroom set up in the classrooms they were teaching, because we had some districts that were not whitelisting their district, whitelisting the NARIC accounts. and I created this document and put it in there so people could pull it through. That's just an example of a material. It's something that you come back to and you reference a lot. And it may be things like your contact hours can go in here. Here's another example of this. I created like a contact hour, one of these, right? You could have a Zoom link. Some of my districts use Zoom, not Meet, so they have a Zoom document in here. This is a way to keep track of, it's a running document that's very vital for parents because you're able to push content to this document instead of pushing it out in an email. Because if they always have the link for the document can update in real time and you don't have to send them an email that gets lost. I think the more we can do for parents and even for some of our students to keep things simple for them, it's very good. Students with disabilities struggle with Google Classrooms because they change all the time. A Google Doc can be a very standardized something, a standardized piece of equipment, for lack of a better word. It's a standardized tool that when they start to use this side piece, they can navigate it easier because the layout's not changing on them. You can change the layout at the bottom, but they can just use these pieces. So these are little tricks that you can come through and you can just kind of click your way through, and they're like little shortcuts down the side, and people are like, oh, those are so cool, right? That's a really nice way to navigate a document. That's the equivalent of in Google Docs, or excuse me, in Microsoft Word or on websites, we used to be able to put in what are called bookmarks, and we used to be able to drop yourself down in a document. That's what that is in a Google Doc. That kind of document really belongs in your Google Classroom. So let's go back up, and I'm going to go back up into all topics. I'm going to create a very quick assignment for my students. I'm going to do an assignment here. I'm going to push it out, and I'm going to call it 3.2. Oh, yeah, once I type in the dot box, 3.2. How about dot, not comma? It's Dr. Seuss Day. And we're going to put my my instructions down here. So instructions are never optional for students, ever, 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 ever. That's the one thing I hope they take out really soon, because students and adults, not or adults, don't read very well. Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm not looking at anybody in the room. I would never do that, right? Directions, like we read the first two parts, and if we don't understand it, we just scream wolf, right? How many of us do that, right? I don't get it. Instead of rereading the directions again, a couple good tips. Number your steps, okay? Return twice. Number your steps, return twice. Why do I like this? Okay, this is for my students with visual acuity problems. So students, my special ed students, it's easier to track. Numbering your steps, why is that so important? It's really important because if you have 6 steps and your students say, I'm stuck, and you say to them, okay, where are you stuck? And they can say, I can't get past step 4. Wow, it is so much easier to target their need to clarify those directions than if they say, I don't understand, right? I don't get it, nothing works, right? So if they could say to them, okay, go through, right? Number your steps, add a link, right? So I'm just kind of giving you some ideas. Now, why am I returning twice through that? Because it's white space. This is so much easier on our eyes. We're not ever printing this. So we're not worried about the space we're going to take up on a digital document. But this is just going to be easier on your eyes when you open it up. It's easier to read. It's easier to track. And you notice my directions, I never write directions that are like 12 lines long. Now you can write the whole thing out and then you can number it up if it makes more sense for you like that, right? I'm just, after years of doing tech work, I just know that Numbered steps are so much better for people. And then if you need to edit them, and you will, so don't think you won't. You come in and you're like, wow, step 4 wasn't clear. Don't renumber them all. Just make the step between 4 and 5 4. You make 4 4A, and you make the next one 4B. Okay? Because you don't have to renumber them all. You don't have to shift them all. That's a perfect time. You say to your students, you go back in and you go into the stream and you say, ladies and gentlemen, Joey had, or one of you saw that the directions were not very clear. I have added a couple sub numbers within the document, within the assignment that should help clarify the directions. Right? That's a great simple thing to do. And in teaching the edit process and doing it more than once is very helpful. So now I can add a document right here. This is kind of the benefit of working within Google Drive, is I can come in and I can add a document. Now, if you have just created the document, it's the simplest thing to do is to just come into your recent and say, okay, I'm going to grab that one right there. I'm just going to insert that in here. So that's a video library option that's in here. Now I have 3 options when I give it to my students. They can view it. I'm reaching for something. They can view it, they can edit it, or they can have their own copy. They view it, you're all on one Post-it together. You all write on this document together. They can edit it, which is the next one down. You all write on the same exact document, okay? You're writing on the same one. And the last one, you make a copy for each student. I give each one of you your own individual Post-it, your own individual document. So what are the chances, when would you use these differently? So I want my students to read a document. I give it to them as they can view it. Never need to make a Google document, a PDF, if you're going to use it in Google Classroom. You just give it to them as view. Ooh, that saves a few steps. I want them all to work on one document together, as in I want one document to grade. There are benefits to using one document. I've created a document that has a table in it. I've asked a couple questions. I've given my students spaces to write. They can answer back to me in that. Katrina, to you as a social studies teacher, that would be bonus. Not 85 pieces, just maybe 4. It's also, students can edit a file as a way for you to push a file out to your students for differentiation and have them collaborating on documents. It's another good way to do it. So instead of 85, you might do 5 a class. So I have 5 papers per class, and I would name it like Video Library Doc 1, Video Library Doc 2, Video Library Doc 3. Okay, so just so you have some different namings in there. When you share a file to a student like that, when you share it to them and they can all edit it, you're still the owner. So you're still in charge of it. So you can still see what they're doing. Also another valuable thing. If I make them their copy, they're going to have their own copy. They fill it out and they return it back to me by turning it in. I can also create a document right from within Google Classroom. This is like a newer feature, like within the last year and a half. If you create a Google form directly from a Google Classroom, it will grade it and push your grades into your Google Classroom. Woo, 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 winner, winner, chicken dinner. Okay, let me see that one more time. If you create a Google form directly within Google Classroom, it will grade it and import your grades in automatically. Can you do that if you make the form before and then pull it in? You can. You have to just go through some manual steps to bring it in, okay? So I also can differentiate my learning for my students by coming over here, and this is the class that I want to push the assignment to, and I can decide to only push it to a few people. This is my entire instructional, not everyone, but most people on the instructional team, and I can just push it to 2 people instead of everyone on the team. Pretty simple. So I can just push assign. All right, so let me go on. Assign, there we go. They love it when I push this. I gave them a pre-warning that I was doing a Google Classroom training today. They're all like, ah! They know to just throw them in the trash when they come in. All right, so the next one is people. So I'm going to invite people. Teachers are on top, students are at the bottom. So how do I invite a kid? So most people will go through the process of sharing. They will share the code to a student. A new student comes in the class. So Kristen's new to our team. She comes in and I tell her, go to Google Classroom. I want you to join. You're going to type in this code. But I don't even have to do that anymore. I can come up here, I can add, I can go like this, and I can just type her name in. And the minute I type in Kristen, she should pop up here. There she is, Kristen Barnett, and I add her, I'm going to invite her in. She will have to accept it, click the link, and she'll come in. But this is what it looks like when she is invited into a classroom. So when she goes back to the classroom.google.com, she's going to see a box. And it's going to say, you're invited to join this class. And she can click right on that, and then she'll be in this Google Classroom. So also in here, you can invite guardians. So you can see right here for people that don't have guardians. So we're going to invite a guardian to Hillary. And all you have to do is type in an email, and they will start to populate. Now, if you have guardians invited, let me back that thought process up. And I'm going slower than I planned on today. Sorry. If you, sorry, my brain just went on super vacation. Ooh, Kristen just came in. If you, where am I going? If you are the last class of the day, sorry, it's like first class of the day, my brain's not working. If you are the last class of the day, like you teach 5 classes, but you're on your 5th class, and you come in here to invite guardians, but they've been invited in other classes, they're automatically invited to your classroom. So you thank all your friends along the way. Thank you, because they basically have done all the work for you, right? That's kind of a bonus. So if a parent accepts an invite to one Google Classroom, they have accepted it to all the Google Classrooms that have it turned on. So that's really important. So if they say to you, well, I don't have it for yours, and I'm like, well, you do, because you're in there, right? You can see here that Erica is the guardian to Laura, who's our boss, right? So she, so any work that Laura doesn't do, Erica gets the emails on. She's also the guardian to Mike Solosky, who is Laura's boss, and that's kind of funny. Just so, but we do just do this because these are our team members, and we just kind of use all of my weird emails and get them all linked to them. So just know that you can do that, and you can have multiple people invited to a guardian. It doesn't have to be one person. So this is really good in some situations where there's an aunt and an uncle, or we move through multiple boyfriend, girlfriends, or parents are split, or just so that can happen, and you can remove people as well. So when you can come in, you notice the 3 dots, you can remove a guardian pretty easily. The last one over is grades. I don't really go into grades all that much. That is definitely always something I do in my level 2, but your grades will populate in here, and as students have things due, they will come in. You will see here's their list of what they've done and not done, and these poor guys. They have so many assignments, and they rarely ever do anything. Well, they never do anything. It's all good, right? So you can see all the pieces that are in here, what's due, what's not due, and grades will populate into there. Okay, let me pop back out, because I always do a really good job for 3 tabs, and then I just totally walk away from it. Okay, inviting students. So you watched me invite students into that session. What's the benefit of doing it that way? So the way that I did it was typing in her email, which is really, really great for an older student. There's another way to do it. So if I come into my settings, I can show the class code when my students are with me, or I can do this thing. I can do a copy invite link, which is right here. And I can take that, and I can actually I'm going to do it right now. I can paste it right into the chat. So I could have my students with me in a Google Meet, maybe that, or a Zoom through calendar that I pushed out to students. I don't even have to have my students do anything else. They can click on that link and they can join my Google Classroom. That's huge for little people. It's huge because they just have one place to click and it makes their lives so much easier. Always thinking through that process, what's the easiest thing to do? And you'll notice in this, here's the invite code, right? LTMUOEF. And if you look down here in the invite link, it's at the end of it. LTMUOEF. It brings the students into Google Classroom and then it brings them right into the one they need. So it's like 2 less clicks. It's also great for students with disabilities because they just don't really need to worry about those things. And you know, I did it twice because I felt like it was super important. There's a display code and there's how you can invite link in. I guess it was super important. So inviting pieces. So I'm gonna just follow my slides. I have like 2 minutes and I have like 30 slides left to go. Okay, if you need to go, just go and I'll keep recording. Remember, doing announcements. I do a lot of this while I'm going into it the first time. Keep your stream clean. That's going to be super important. So classwork is where you're putting those assignments. I always say I do a lot of this as I go through the training. Use a naming convention when you're naming your assignments. I don't know if I could say that enough. Using naming convention everywhere you go, please, for the love of God, right? Different kinds of things you can attach. You can attach from your computer. You can attach from your drive. You can attach a link, any website, and you can attach a video, but is only YouTube. That's the only option right now. I'm not sure that will ever change. We went through all this, creating an assignment. Here's a kind of a breakdown of the kind of students, those 3 views. Students can edit, students can view, students can edit, they can make a copy. Yeah, we didn't talk about due dates. I think everybody, this is, most people have some experience with Google Classroom now. It's not as scary as it used to be. If you create an assignment and you schedule it, it's so that you can, it'll automatically turn on tomorrow, 8 o'clock in the morning, which is super beneficial for those people that do all of their assignments early in the week. So you could do them Sunday night and never come back in and have to push something out. You can just look at work and you can do announcements. Simple. Scheduling and save draft turn gray. Saving draft is like, I worked on it, I want to come back to it. Due dates. If you add in due dates, they go to your Google Classroom calendar. I don't know if I could tell people this enough to teach your kids how to use the calendar, because it's just so awesome when you have something in your calendar, right? When you have an assignment that's due in your calendar, they feed right into here. And the benefit of that is that you know when they're due and the kids know when they're due and they can just click on it. And what happens is it takes them right where they need to go. So this is one of the 3rd grade classes that I'm in as a student. See how easy that is? So I can see, here's my instructions. Here's the student work. This is what I have to do. I have to do a read works, right? It's just, it makes it so much easier. And calendar, which we do tomorrow, is a life skill. Like knowing how to navigate a calendar is a life skill that everybody, if there's one life skill you want to give kids, it's calendar, right? I mean, I went to college and had to buy a paper calendar and I had to learn how to navigate my life. Okay, I love calendar. I still have a paper calendar, right? It's a life skill because you got to schedule stuff, right? We talked about quizzes. We talked about questions. Well, we didn't really talk about questions. This goes into each one of the components. So reusing a post, if I go into a Google Classroom and I reuse a post, this is the process. I'm going to stay on my slides. Reusing a post is being able to go back in and to pull something from another Google Classroom and pull it into this one. It's hugely beneficial. You'll notice I put a little arrow here to create new copies of attachments. So it's stuff you made last year. You don't have to go find it. You just tell it to click on that box and then reuse. Sometimes I think through this. How to change this class's settings. We already did some of this, like how to change the meet, how to change the meet codes, how to, wow. Sometimes I don't relook at what I make and I'm kind of impressed, right? How to change things on the stream. So that was how I hid notifications on my stream. This is a little arrow about where you're going to go find it. Those general settings. These are all up in here in the little gear. The gear is life. Oh, I don't want to be in this classroom. I love these guys, but if I make changes to their classroom, they're going to want to kill me. They're in it right now. So if I go into the gear, if I come down here into general, this is what this is right now. I'm trying to see. The only thing that's a little different is the meet icon is different here, right? So it's the colored icon now. This is an older screenshot. So those pieces that you can do in here, here's where it encodes. You also, if you are using Meet with your students, if you turn it off, so you make it so that it's not visible. So right now they had it, they call it managed. You can turn it off so that it can't be seen, right? And then you can reset it. So if those little buffers have done bad things, like they kept a copy of it to go back in, you can turn it off. So that is one of the big pieces that Google is changing with all, they have about 13, maybe 13, 15 Google Meet updates. One of them is going to be, you're going to be able to turn the meeting off for everyone. You're going to be able to like say end meeting, done, it's over. So they can't get back into it. So that is hugely beneficial. And a few other things that come with this, but you can turn this on, you can turn this off, you can reset the code. That's always valuable to be able to reset it so that some of our duffs are pretty smart. And I know people are like, oh, you should never say that about them. I don't think they're being mischievous. Well, yes, they are being mischievous, but I tend to use the words that they're being resourceful, and we have to be impressed with the resourcefulness, right? We want them to problem solve. They have learned how. And I think we should embrace that and just say, okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm impressed. And trust me, they will find a way around it. And you're just going to have to find a new workaround because that's the way they are. And that's not a terrible thing. We want problem solvers in our lives. Inviting guardians, we went through this process, right? You can invite them all, then you can email them all. What? Say what? I can come back into people and I can come up here and I can check this box and I can tell it to email all guardians. It's going to open. Now, I don't have Gmail hooked to this account, but if I had Gmail hooked up, it would link right through and it would allow me to send an email. Oh, sweet mother of pearls. That is an awesome little feature because I have the ability to just write an email from there. Makes life pretty simple. I walk through student view and then I put some resources at the end. Probably the best thing out there. Now, if you ever have questions about Google Classroom, Alice Keeler is the person to go to. And if you don't know who Alice Keeler is, Alice Keeler literally wrote the books, not just one anymore, multiple books about Google Classroom. And she's so easy to find. It's just alicekeeler.com. And if you come to her Google Classroom site right here, she has so many things in here about Google Classroom. You can just literally do Control F and work your way through. And she will. So if I look for reuse, look at, I wrote results. Reuse, okay? So she's got, I can keep looking, reuse a post. You should be able to find it. And basically, these are all little articles that she's done about it. It's just awesome. Where does Virginia go when she's confused about something or has a question? I go to Alice Keeler. Okay. I go to Twitter and then Alice Keeler now. But, that's the place to go. Simple, simple. So move your tiles around in the right order. Schedule those assignments. Oh, one of my biggest things to tell people is this is in your drive. And I know I'm over. I appreciate you guys staying late. This really is an hour training. you will get a Google Classroom folder that looks like this. Do not go in it. I don't know if I could say that enough. If I could put skull and crossbones on this, I would. If you want to muck up, you could use a couple others, beginning consonants on there. If you want to muck up your Google Classroom, come on into this folder and start moving stuff around. If you do that, the minute you do that, you will break the mapping to your Google Classroom and it will not work. Do not go near that folder. You know how many people I tell people like this? And I just tell them to rename this and tell them, I have them make it red. I'm like, do me a favor, just make it red, right? Just make this folder red so you can't play with it, because don't touch the red things. Don't touch the red things, right? So simple. If you do, you will break it. You will break it. And I've seen it happen. So somebody's like, oh, I wanted to clean all that stuff out. And like, oh, it's next to you because now your Google Classroom's not going to work great. And you can't get it back. Because if you delete it, you can't pull it back out of the trash efficiently. Sometimes you'll find kids will do that. They'll go in and they'll just clean their folders and they'll throw everything out. You have to uninvite them to your classroom and re-invite them because it's like, oh my gosh, yep. That's the reality, right? They think they're doing good. They think they're doing good. Reuse your posts, assigned to multiple classrooms at a time. I gave you just some more tips in here. I think I've gone through all of these things. I would say if you're going to use questions with your students, always use an open-ended question that require an answer, not a lookup, right? We want them to give you a full-blown question. So it's creating some dialogue. If you want to do a discussion area with your students, use your stream. That's a good one. I don't need that. You can take that out of there. All right, we don't need that either. And that's it, my friends. So that went a little long. I am really sorry. I'm really sorry, but that's the reality of this is a longer session. Google Classroom is a pretty big tool. I will make sure you get a full hours of credit for this, so don't worry. I'll just go in and fix that. Let me know if you have any questions. You know that you will get a link later, and later today, I'm going to stop recording right now. Maybe.